Your access badge is being revoked effective immediately. The words pierced like truth always does, clean and merciless. I sat motionless across from Renata, my manager of 4 years. Her gaze never quite met mine. Behind her, the window framed the Manhattan skyline I'd grown so familiar with that I'd stopped noticing. Now, suddenly, I was seeing everything with painful clarity. The company cannot risk keeping employees who overstep boundaries and pursue unauthorized investigations. Her voice had that practiced stoniness executives, perfect for uncomfortable moments. You've been accessing financial records outside your department. You've been asking questions beyond your clearance level. My throat constricted. I found irregularities. You know exactly what I found. What you found was a way to misinterpret standard business operations because you lack context. Renata straightened the pen on her otherwise empty desk. The security team will watch you clear your personal belongings. I'd anticipated this moment for weeks, but the reality still stung. 4 years of exceptional performance reviews. 4 years of advancing the company's compliance framework. All erased because I'd noticed money flowing to numbered accounts in countries with names that appeared on international watch lists. You're making a catastrophic mistake, I said quietly. Renata finally looked directly at me, something flickering behind her professional mask. Fear, regret, whatever it was vanished quickly. The mistake was yours, June. Sign the severance agreement and confidentiality clause. 6 months' salary for your silence. I left the papers untouched. You always told me integrity was non-negotiable. Don't lecture me about integrity when you've broken company protocols, she pressed the intercom. Wyatt, please escort June from the building. The security guard appeared moments later. Wyatt, who'd wished me happy birthday last month, now avoiding eye contact as I gathered my small plant and framed hiking photo. Everything else belonged to the company. 4 years reduced to what fit in my hands. As Wyatt walked me through the open workspace, colleagues looked away. Keyboards clicked louder. Conversations halted. Only Mina, the data analyst who'd helped me understand the transaction patterns, dared to meet my eyes with a nearly imperceptible nod. At the elevator, Wyatt finally spoke. For what it's worth, this doesn't seem right. I handed him my access badge. It's not, and they'll learn that soon enough. Outside, the March wind whipped between buildings as I pulled out my phone and made a call to the number I'd memorized weeks ago. It's June. They've terminated me. The voice on the other end was calm. Are you somewhere private? Walking east on 42nd Street. Keep moving. We're expediting everything. Is your home secure? Yes. No company devices there. Good. Someone will contact you within 48 hours. Until then, maintain normal patterns. I ended the call and continued walking, passing crowds of office workers living their uncomplicated Wednesday afternoons. 3 blocks later, my phone buzzed with messages from colleagues. Mina, what happened? Devin, are you okay? Renata's saying you accessed confidential files? Parker, HR called an emergency department meeting. What's going on? I responded to none of them. The next move wasn't mine to make. Before I continue with what happened next, I want to thank you for listening to my story. This isn't easy to share, even now. If you're finding value in hearing about how corporate power can be abused and how sometimes justice finds a way, please consider subscribing to this channel. Your support helps these real stories reach people who might be facing similar situations. Now, back to that day that changed everything. My name is June Winters. Until 3 weeks ago, I was Senior Compliance Specialist at one of America's largest financial service firms. My job was to ensure our operations remained within legal boundaries, a role I took seriously, too seriously, according to Renata. I grew up in Michigan with parents who taught mathematics at the local university. They raised me with the belief that patterns reveal truth if you know how to read them. This made me perfect for compliance work. I could spot inconsistencies others missed. This same skill had earned me 3 promotions in 4 years. The trouble began last November when I noticed unusual transaction patterns while reviewing international wire transfers. Small amounts, $9,800, just under reporting thresholds, moving through multiple accounts before consolidating in offshore locations. Once combined, these sums became millions. Following protocols, I flagged these transactions and submitted a report to Renata. Her response seemed appropriate at first. I'll review this personally and forward it to the appropriate channels. But nothing happened. The transactions continued. Each time I mentioned my concerns, her answers grew increasingly dismissive. It's being handled at executive level. Those accounts have special clearance. Some business operations require discretion you're not privy to. In January, I began documenting everything meticulously in a private notebook kept locked at home. By February, I'd identified a pattern connecting these transactions to organizations on international sanction lists. The money wasn't just moving strangely, it was moving illegally. When I prepared a comprehensive report and left it on Renata's desk, her reaction was unexpected. She invited me to lunch. At an upscale restaurant blocks from our office, Renata ordered champagne. "June, your dedication is admirable, truly, but there are aspects of international finance that require flexibility. Flexibility doesn't extend to breaking federal law," I replied. She sighed, swirling her untouched champagne. "The world isn't black and white. Our clients operate in complex environments. These aren't clients. They're shell entities, routing money to sanctioned groups." Renata's expression hardened. "I've recommended you for a position in our Singapore office. Significant promotion, substantial raise. You'd leave next month." The message was clear. Take the bribe, disguised as promotion, or face consequences. I spent that night weighing options, my apartment windows reflecting city lights that never dimmed. By morning, I'd made my decision. I contacted the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network and arranged to meet with Agent Tristan Reed. I brought copies of everything I'd documented. "What you've uncovered," Reed said after reviewing my evidence, "appears to be systematic sanctions evasion, possibly money laundering for designated terrorist financing channels. My company is knowingly facilitating this. That's what we need to determine. Some executives may be involved without broader knowledge. Would you be willing to help us gather additional evidence?" 3 months I spent living a double life. Compliance specialist by day, federal informant by night. I provided transaction details, meeting notes, names of executives with approval authority. The circle of knowledge within the company seemed deliberately small, contained to Renata and 2 senior executives. Yesterday morning, I received an encrypted message from Reed. Evidence sufficient. Operation proceeding within 72 hours. Yesterday afternoon, I noticed Renata watching me from across the workspace. By evening, security logs would show her accessing my digital footprint, reviewing everything I'd viewed or downloaded in recent months. This morning, she called me into her office and fired me. I spent the evening in my apartment, windows darkened, thinking about the years I dedicated to a company that discarded integrity when it became inconvenient. At 9 p.m., my doorbell rang. Agent Reed stood in the hallway with a woman I hadn't met. "June, this is Special Agent Valerie Moss. We need to update you on timing." Inside my apartment, they outlined what would happen next. "The raid is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon," Moss explained. "Your termination accelerated our timeline. Will you need me there?" I asked. "Yes," Reed said. "Your presence is essential for what happens next." "What exactly is happening next?" I asked, uncertainty creeping into my voice. Reed and Moss exchanged glances before Reed answered. "Tomorrow," he said, "we're not just raiding your company. We're inviting you to witness as we dismantle one of the largest corporate criminal enterprises we've uncovered in a decade. And Renata? She has no idea what's coming." What I didn't know then was that Renata had already made her next move, one that would put everything at risk, including my life. I slept fitfully that night, dreams fracturing into images of Renata's cold stare and security guards flanking office doors. When morning arrived, I moved mechanically through my apartment, preparing for what was coming. My phone remained silent. No more messages from colleagues. They'd already begun erasing me. At 11 a.m., Agent Reed called. "We're moving in at 2 p.m. Be at the North Corner coffee shop by 1:30. Has anything changed?" Surveillance indicates increased activity overnight. Several executives arrived before dawn and left with boxes. Digital security shows mass file transfers. They're destroying evidence. My stomach clenched. "Can you move faster?" "We're monitoring all exits and digital channels. Nothing critical will escape. Ready yourself for significant attention once this breaks." The hours crawled by. I dressed carefully, charcoal slacks and a navy blouse. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed. Disgruntled employee, professional, composed, the woman they should have listened to. At 1:15, I left my apartment building, hyper-aware of every person I passed. Did that man look at me too long? Was that woman speaking about me on her phone? Paranoia feeds on isolation. The coffee shop buzzed with the normal early afternoon crowd. Students with laptops, professionals between meetings. I ordered tea I wouldn't drink and chose a window seat facing the gleaming 50-story tower where, until yesterday, my career had been building. At 1 to 40, black SUVs began arriving, parking with precision along the building's perimeter. Men and women in dark suits emerged, moving with coordinated purpose. Unmarked police vehicles positioned themselves at intersection points. My phone vibrated with an incoming call. June, Renata's voice, stripped of yesterday's certainty. We need to resolve this situation immediately. I watched another federal vehicle position itself near the building's service entrance. I'm listening. The board has reviewed your concerns and feels there may have been miscommunication. They're prepared to reinstate you with a substantial compensation adjustment. I almost laughed. And what changed since yesterday? A pause stretched between us. Let's meet privately and discuss. Her voice lowered. The confidentiality agreement has been modified. 1 year's salary, plus bonus. Just sign and this all goes away. Across the street, agents were entering the lobby in formation. You're right about one thing, Renata. This all goes away today, but not the way you're hoping. What does that mean? Sharp now, alarmed. Look out your window. The line went silent. I imagined her rising from her desk, moving to the glass wall of her corner office, watching the coordinated arrival of federal authorities. What have you done? She whispered. My job. Exactly as you taught me when I first joined. Remember what you told new hires? Integrity isn't just a word on our values statement. It's the only sustainable business model. June, listen to me carefully. You don't understand the complexity. I understand perfectly. Will you be telling the agents about the secondary server in Panama? Or should I? The call disconnected. At 2 p.m. precisely, Agent Reed texted, enter through main lobby in 5 minutes. I crossed the street, awareness sharpened to painful clarity. Everything looked different. The building I'd entered thousands of times now, transformed into the scene of a federal raid. Employees huddled outside, confusion evident in their clustering and urgent phone calls. Inside, the normally bustling lobby had become command central. Agents directed people in and out of elevators. Others guarded access points. Employees sat in groups, some being interviewed, others waiting with expressions ranging from boredom to terror. Agent Moss spotted me and approached. June, follow me. She led me past security checkpoints toward the executive floor. Agents carried boxes of materials from offices. Others worked at computer terminals, securing digital evidence. In the main conference room, a team had established an evidence processing station. Wait here, Moss said, positioning me where I could see into Renata's office. My former manager sat rigidly in her chair, 2 agents standing as she answered questions. Her normally perfect appearance had fractured, hair disheveled, makeup smudged at one eye, where she'd touched her face too often. When she saw me through the glass, her expression transformed from controlled cooperation to naked rage. Agent Reed emerged from another office. June, good timing. We've located 3 separate accounting systems. The discrepancies align perfectly with your reports. Have you found the offshore connections? Yes, and more. This goes beyond sanctions violations. We're seeing evidence of systematic bribery of foreign officials, market manipulation, and tax fraud. The scale is substantial. A commotion erupted near the elevator. A man in an expensive suit arrived, flanked by 2 others in similar attire. That's Gilbert Nash, I whispered to Reed, General Counsel. Nash surveyed the scene with practiced calm before noticing me. Recognition flickered across his face, quickly replaced by lawyer's composure. He conferred briefly with his colleagues before approaching an agent who appeared to be supervising. Reed placed a hand briefly on my shoulder. This is the moment things get interesting. Nash doesn't know which documents we've accessed. He's about to start damage control without knowing the extent of the damage. For the next hour, I answered questions from various agents, identifying key personnel and explaining organizational structures. Occasionally, I caught glimpses of Renata being escorted between rooms, her posture increasingly defeated. At 3:15, Agent Moss approached with a tablet. We need clarification on these transaction patterns. The screen displayed familiar numbers, the same transactions I'd flagged months ago. These move through 7 separate entities before reaching their actual destinations, I explained. Each hop crosses a different regulatory jurisdiction, making it nearly impossible to track without seeing the complete pattern. And you identified this pattern how? It repeats. Every third Tuesday, similar amounts move in identical paths. Too precise to be coincidence. Moss nodded. We've compared this against intelligence on known financing channels for a group operating in restricted regions. The match is undeniable. A young agent approached. Agents, Moss, Reed, we've located communications between Nash and Renata from yesterday. You should see this immediately. They stepped away, conferring in hushed tones, while reviewing something on a laptop. Reed's expression darkened. After several minutes, they returned to where I waited. June, we need to move you to a more secure location, Reed said, urgency edging his voice. What's happening? The communications we've uncovered suggest your safety may be compromised. Renata contacted external parties yesterday after your termination, including individuals connected to the organizations benefiting from these transactions. Cold realization washed over me. She told them, I knew about the money. Worse, she provided your home address and suggested you possessed evidence that could create problems for all concerned parties. The implications settled like weight on my chest. She painted a target on me. It appears so. We're sending a team to secure your apartment and retrieve essential items. You'll be under protective custody until we determine the threat level. My carefully constructed world collapsed further. Not just jobless, but now homeless. At least temporarily. As if sensing my thoughts, Moss added, this significantly strengthens the case against Renata. Witness endangerment carries its own substantial penalties. A text message illuminated my phone screen. From Mina. Federal agents everywhere. What's happening? Are you safe? Before I could respond, Reed gently took my phone. We'll need to secure this. Standard procedure for witness protection. Witness protection? For how long? That depends on what else we discover today. The organizations involved have extensive reach. The reality of my situation crystallized with brutal clarity. My life wasn't just disrupted. It was fundamentally altered. The cost of doing the right thing suddenly seemed impossibly high. As we moved toward the elevator, Renata was being escorted out in handcuffs. Our eyes met briefly. Behind her professional mask lay something I'd never seen before. Raw fear. June. She stopped, forcing her escorts to pause. You have no idea what you've done. These people, they won't stop. They'll find you wherever you go. You should have taken the promotion. Agent Reed stepped between us. Miss Lang, anything you say can be used against you. I advised silence. Renata's gaze remained locked on mine. Ask them who else they're investigating. Ask them why they were so interested in our client list. You think you're the hero of this story? You're just their tool. As agents led her into the elevator, her final words hung between us. They would have made you rich in Singapore. Now you'll spend your life looking over your shoulder. The doors closed on her bitter smile, leaving me with a chilling question. What if Renata wasn't the only one using me? When Agent Moss returned, her expression had changed subtly. We need to continue this debriefing at our field office. Immediately. As we descended in a separate elevator, my mind raced with new doubts. What had Renata meant? Was there something about this investigation I didn't understand? The elevator doors opened, revealing the lobby now crowded with more agents and bewildered employees. Agent Moss guided me toward a side exit, where a black SUV waited. As we approached the vehicle, I noticed something odd. The driver wasn't wearing the same tactical gear as other agents. His posture seemed wrong, too alert, too focused on our approach. I slowed my steps. Agent Moss, who's driving that vehicle? She frowned, hand moving toward her weapon. That's not our transport. The man behind the wheel noticed our hesitation. Our eyes met through the windshield. His expression hardened as he reached inside his jacket. Agent Moss shoved me down behind a concrete planter as the first shot shattered the glass doors behind us. Glass exploded inward as bullets tore through the lobby doors. Screams erupted across the space as employees dove for cover. Agent Moss drew her weapon and called for backup while keeping me pinned behind the concrete planter. Stay down, she commanded, her voice sharp with urgency. 3 more agents rushed forward, weapons drawn. The shooter fired twice more before screeching away from the curb. 1 bullet struck uncomfortably close, sending concrete fragments flying. Clear! Someone shouted after several tense seconds. Moss helped me to my feet, her grip firm. Are you hurt? I shook my head, adrenaline making my movements jerky and uncoordinated. Who was that? Exactly who Renata warned you about. She guided me toward a different exit, where Agent Reed waited beside an identical black SUV. This is why protective custody isn't optional. The ride to the federal building passed in blur. My thoughts raced between the morning's events, the shooter's cold eyes, and Renata's final warning. Something didn't align. Why would people connected to illicit financing risk such a public assassination attempt? It felt impulsive, amateur, contradicting everything I knew about the sophisticated operations I'd uncovered. At the federal building, they escorted me to a secure interview room. 2 agents stood guard outside, while Reed and Moss debriefed me for hours. Every transaction I'd flagged, every conversation with Renata, every detail that might help them understand the network they'd begun dismantling. What did Renata mean about me being your tool? I asked during a brief pause. She implied you had other motivations for investigating our company. Reed and Moss exchanged glances. Your company's activities intersect with several ongoing investigations, Reed said carefully. The financial channels you identified connect to broader networks we've monitored for years. So, I wasn't the first person to report them. Moss placed her pen down. You were the first insider, with concrete evidence and willingness to cooperate. Others suspected problems but lacked your access or courage. Something in her tone made me press further. Others like who? A long silence followed before Reed answered. Like Talia Novak. The name struck me with physical force. Talia, the woman whose position I had filled 4 years ago. Her departure had been abrupt, explained away as a family emergency. What happened to her? I asked, though some part of me already knew. Officially, she resigned for personal reasons, Reed said. Unofficially, she approached us with concerns similar to yours. Before we could establish formal cooperation, she disappeared. Her car was found at Newark Airport. No boarding records matched her identity. The implications settled heavily. You think they killed her? We think she discovered what you discovered, Moss corrected. We never found evidence to prove what happened next. Cold reality crashed over me. I wasn't special. I was just the next person to notice the pattern, the next person to be removed. If you knew this operation was dangerous enough to make people disappear, why didn't you warn me from the beginning? The question emerged sharper than intended. Because we needed you, Reed admitted. After Talia vanished, nobody inside the company would talk to us. Your willingness to collaborate was our first break in years. The room felt suddenly airless. You used me as bait. We protected you, Moss countered. From the moment you contacted us, you've been under surveillance. That's how we responded so quickly today. I considered this, but not quickly enough to prevent the shooter. Neither agent responded immediately. Finally, Reed said, there are always variables we can't control. That's why we need to move you to a secure location until the operation concludes. How long? Weeks, possibly months. The magnitude of what I'd done, what I'd lost, swept over me. My home, my career, my safety, all sacrificed for people who had seen me as a useful asset rather than a person. I need some air, I managed, throat tight. I'll escort you, Moss said, rising. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, breathing deeply. What happens to Renata? She'll face multiple federal charges. Based on evidence recovered today, we expect significant prison time. And the others, the people who tried to kill me, we'll find them. The shooter's face was captured on multiple security cameras. He's connected to a known organization in Eastern Europe with ties to arms trafficking. Hard evidence of his involvement helps build our case. Moss handed me a paper cup of water. As I took it, a thought suddenly crystallized. Is Talia alive? The agent's expression shifted subtly. Why do you ask? Because you haven't explicitly said she's dead. You've been careful with your language. Disappeared isn't the same as killed. Moss studied me for a long moment. Follow me. She led me deeper into the building, through security checkpoints requiring her biometric clearance. We stopped before a conference room, where Reed waited with another agent I hadn't met before. June, this is Special Agent Director Amara Keita, Reed introduced. She oversees our Financial Crimes Division. Director Keita nodded briefly. Miss Winters, your cooperation has been invaluable. Agent Reed believes you've earned certain clarifications about our operation. I want to know about Talia, I stated firmly. Talia Novak is alive, Director Keita confirmed. She's been in our confidential witness program for 4 years. Relief mixed with confusion. Then why tell me she disappeared? Compartmentalization. Only those with necessary clearance knew the truth. She pushed a folder across the table. Until this morning, that didn't include you. I opened the folder to find surveillance photos. Me entering and leaving my apartment building. Me meeting Agent Reed at a cafe 3 months ago. Me having lunch with Renata the day she offered the Singapore position. I don't understand. For 4 years, we've investigated a network of financial institutions facilitating weapons transfers to sanctioned regions, Director Keita explained. Your company represented one node in this network. Talia identified it but couldn't secure sufficient evidence before her cover was compromised. So you placed me in her position? Anger flared as implications became clear. You engineered my hire? No, Reed interrupted. You were legitimately hired, but when our surveillance noted your growing concerns about the same transactions Talia had flagged, we recognized an opportunity. Director Keita leaned forward. Miss Winters, today's operation wasn't just about your company. Similar raids are currently underway at 7 financial institutions across 4 countries. The evidence you provided completed connections we'd been building for years. The scope staggered me. What happens now? Now we move to the next phase, she replied. And you have a choice to make. Agent Moss placed another folder before me. These are your options for witness protection, new identity, relocation, financial support during transition. I stared at the unopened folder. And if I refuse? Not recommended, Reed said quietly. The organizations involved won't stop hunting you. There is another option, Director Keita stated, drawing surprised looks from Reed and Moss. One that might better utilize your skills. I'm listening. Join our financial intelligence unit. Your expertise in identifying these transaction patterns is exceptional. You've proven your integrity under extreme pressure. We need people like you. The offer was unexpected. You want me to work for you? After you used me as bait? After we partnered with you to dismantle a criminal network, she corrected. Yes. Before I could respond, Reed's phone buzzed. He checked the message, expression tightening. Director, we have a situation. Renata Lang is requesting to speak with June. Says she has information that will only be shared directly. Absolutely not, Moss interjected. It's a manipulation tactic. Director Keita considered this. What do you think, Miss Winters? You know her better than any of us. I thought about Renata's final words in the elevator. The odd specificity of her warning. I'll talk to her, but I have conditions. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Renata in an interview room. Her handcuffs were secured to the table. The confident executive was gone, replaced by someone diminished but still calculating. I didn't expect them to grant my request, she said, studying me. You must be more valuable than I realized. What do you want, Renata? To give you perspective, you think you've brought down criminals today, but you've merely helped one powerful group eliminate competition from another. I maintained neutral expression. Is that why someone tried to kill me? Competition? Something flickered in her eyes. That wasn't authorized. Anton acts impulsively when threatened. His impulsivity will add attempted murder to your conspiracy charges. Renata leaned forward. Listen carefully, June. The FBI hasn't told you everything. 5 years ago, they approached our executive team about using our networks to track certain financial groups. We cooperated initially. Then we discovered they were protecting some operations while targeting others based on political considerations, not legal ones. You're claiming the federal government asked you to launder money? I'm saying international finance and intelligence operations exist in gray areas you can't imagine. When we stopped cooperating fully, we became targets. She sat back. Ask your new friends, who profits from the assets seized today. Ask them where those funds actually go. I studied her, searching for manipulation tactics I'd witnessed throughout our professional relationship. Why tell me this? Because you deserve to know what you're part of. A bitter smile crossed her face. Also, self-interest. I'm proposing a trade. Information for leniency. What information? Names, dates, account numbers for operations your agents don't know about. Enough to expand their investigation significantly. If they're actually interested in stopping all illegal activity, not just competing channels. I stood. I'll relay your offer. One more thing, she called as I reached the door. Singapore wasn't just a bribe, it was protection. I was trying to save you from becoming Talia. I froze. You knew about Talia? Renata's expression showed genuine surprise. Of course I knew. Who do you think warned her before they came for her? I returned to Director Keita with thoughts churning. The complexity deepened with every revelation. When I reported Renata's claims and offer, Keita's response was measured. Standard manipulation, conspiracy theories to sow doubt about our operation. But some of what she said was accurate, I pointed out. She knew about Talia when supposedly no one did. Because Renata was likely involved in the threat that forced us to extract Talia, Reed said. She's twisting facts to create conspiracy where there is none. I considered this. Then you won't pursue her information offer? We'll evaluate any concrete intelligence she provides, Director Keita said carefully. But her claims about government misconduct are desperate attempts to create bargaining leverage. By evening, I was exhausted beyond measure. They relocated me to a secure apartment within the federal building complex. As Agent Moss conducted a final security check, she paused at the door. For what it's worth, I think you'd make an excellent addition to our team. Few people maintain their moral compass under the pressure you faced. After she left, I sat alone in the sterile apartment, mind racing. Everything had changed in 24 hours. My understanding of my career, my company, even the nature of the investigation I'd participated in, all transformed. If Renata was manipulating me, her tactics were sophisticated. If she was telling the truth, even partially, the implications were staggering. I opened my temporary laptop and began making notes. Questions, inconsistencies, things that didn't align. If I had learned anything from this ordeal, it was to trust patterns more than people. 3 days passed in secured isolation. Agents debriefed me repeatedly. News reports detailed the massive financial crimes investigation spanning multiple companies and countries. Renata and several executives faced arraignment. The shooter, identified as Anton Vasco, had been apprehended attempting to cross into Canada. On the 4th morning, Agent Reed arrived with unexpected news. We've arranged for you to speak with someone. It required special clearance. He escorted me to a private communication room where a secure video link had been established. When the screen activated, I found myself looking at a woman with familiar eyes, but different hair, different name, displayed beneath her image. Hello, June, she said quietly. I've been following your work. Talia Novak, now operating under a new identity, looked both familiar and foreign. The former compliance specialist I'd replaced had transformed into someone harder, more cautious. I have questions, I said simply. I imagine you do, but first, I need to thank you. You completed what I couldn't. She glanced off camera briefly. I have limited time. What do you most need to know? Renata claims she tried to warn you. Is that true? Talia's expression tightened. Partially, she warned me after ensuring I was compromised. Classic manipulation, create the danger, then offer protection. Why did you suspect the transactions in the first place? For the same reason you did, patterns that defied legitimate explanation. She leaned closer to the camera. June, listen carefully. You're at a crossroads I faced 4 years ago. Director Keita offered you a position, didn't she? I nodded. Take it, Talia said firmly, but not for the reasons they want you to. Meaning, Renata was partly right. There are competing interests within these investigations. Working from inside lets you distinguish between genuine justice and political convenience. Her voice lowered. I've spent 4 years building a network of former financial insiders like us, people who understand the systems being abused. Understanding dawned slowly. You're running a parallel investigation. With unofficial support from certain factions within the government, we identify operations that get protected for political reasons. She glanced away again. Our time's ending. If you accept Keita's offer, use the secure contact protocol embedded in your welcome package. The authentication phrase is, patterns reveal truth. The screen went dark. When I emerged from the communication room, Reed waited expectantly. Did that answer your questions? I've made my decision about Director Keita's offer. 2 weeks later, I sat in Director Keita's office, officially joining the Financial Crimes Task Force as a specialist analyst. My first assignment, reviewing evidence from the raids, including materials seized from Renata's hidden storage units. Among the files, I discovered something unexpected, a secondary ledger, showing transactions similar to those I'd initially flagged, but moving through different channels not mentioned in any of our investigation reports. As I examined these records, the pattern emerged with stunning clarity. These weren't competing criminal networks, as Renata had suggested. They were parallel channels operated by the same organizations, with one Critical difference. The transactions in this secondary ledger all connected to companies mentioned in a classified directive listed as monitor only. That night, in my new apartment, I activated the secure protocol Talia had mentioned. Her response came within minutes. Welcome to the real work. Patterns reveal truth. 6 months passed as I built my reputation within the agency while secretly documenting discrepancies with Talia's network. Evidence accumulated showing selective enforcement based on political alliances rather than legal standards. Renata's trial approached, with me scheduled as a key witness. 2 days before testimony began, I visited her in detention, officially to review evidence. You look different, she observed. Government work agrees with you. I'm not here about the trial, I stated. I found your secondary ledgers. Her expression remained carefully neutral, and I slid a document across the table, a comprehensive analysis of the parallel financial channels that remained untouched by our investigation. You were partly right. Some operations received protection, while others were targeted. Now you understand why I told you Singapore was protection, not just a bribe. She studied me intently. What will you do with this information? Something you never did. The right thing. Completely. Not selectively. I reclaimed the document. I'm working with others to ensure all these operations face justice, not just the politically expendable ones. For the first time since I'd known her, genuine surprise registered on Renata's face. Others? You found Talia. I neither confirmed nor denied. My testimony against you stands. Your crimes were real, whatever else might be true. But I wanted you to know, the system you thought would protect you is being dismantled, piece by piece. They'll come after you, she warned. The same people who came after Talia, the same people who sent Anton. I'm counting on it, I replied, because unlike you, I've left nothing to chance. The day of Renata's trial arrived. I testified precisely, factually, damning her with her own records and statements. The prosecution built an irrefutable case. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, I felt no triumph, only grim satisfaction. As Renata was led away, our eyes met briefly. Understanding passed between us. She had tried to make me like her, pragmatic, compromised, willing to look away for personal gain. Instead, I had become something she never anticipated. Someone who actually believed in the principles she only pretended to uphold. 1 year later, I stood beside Director Kita as we announced the results of Operation Clean Sweep, the largest coordinated action against financial crimes in agency history. What the press release didn't mention was that this operation had targeted all channels, including those previously protected by political connections. The evidence Talia's network had quietly gathered, combined with what I'd collected from inside, had proven too comprehensive to ignore or suppress. After the press conference, Director Kita regarded me thoughtfully. You've exceeded expectations, June. Your promotion comes through next month. Thank you, I replied, maintaining the professional relationship we'd developed. She hesitated before adding, some people wonder if you're too idealistic for this work, too unwilling to recognize necessary compromises. I met her gaze steadily. I believe patterns reveal truth, Director. All patterns, not just convenient ones. Something in her expression suggested she understood more than she acknowledged. Be careful that idealism doesn't blind you to reality. Reality is precisely what I'm focused on, I assured her. That evening, I received a message from Talia. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. Are you ready? I typed my response, always ready for the next pattern. This wasn't the ending I'd imagined when I first noticed those suspicious transactions years ago. It wasn't revenge in any traditional sense. It was something more powerful, systematic accountability that couldn't be stopped by removing just one person. Renata had called me dangerous. She wasn't wrong, but the danger wasn't what she thought. The real danger was someone who understood the system completely and refused to be corrupted by it. Someone who recognized that true justice requires both courage and patience. The federal agents who walked into our building that day weren't just there to arrest criminals. They became part of something larger, a reckoning that would eventually reach every corner of a system built on selective enforcement and political convenience. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't destroying your enemies, but transforming the world that made them powerful in the first place. If you're going through something similar in your workplace, seeing patterns that others ignore or actively conceal, remember that speaking truth always carries risk, but silence guarantees nothing will change. Your voice matters. Your integrity matters. And sometimes being labeled dangerous means you're doing exactly what needs to be done. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you, please consider subscribing and sharing with others who might need to hear that standing alone for what's right isn't really standing alone at all. There are more of us out there than you think, watching for patterns, revealing truth,